We're about to explore a journey that every single one of us has taken. That wild transformation from a tiny, helpless infant into a capable adult. It feels so normal because we all do it, right? But when you really stop and look closely, you realize it's all guided by this incredibly precise and fascinating biological blueprint. I mean, really think about it for a second. A newborn can't even lift its own head. And yet, in just a handful of years, they're walking, they're talking, they're reasoning. How does that happen? Is it all just random? A series of lucky accidents? Not a chance. It's not random at all. This whole transformation follows a predictable, almost beautifully orchestrated sequence. You could call it a biological blueprint that guides our growth right from day one. So let's dive into that blueprint. And we're going to start with the most explosive chapter of all. Okay, our journey kicks off in what is, without a doubt, the most dramatic period of growth we ever experience outside the womb. That first year. Seriously, the sheer pace of change that's packed into these 12 months is unlike anything that comes after. So let's just start with a wow number to put this in perspective. The average baby triples their birth weight by their first birthday. Triples it. Can you imagine doing that now? It just shows the incredible amount of energy that's being poured into literally building a human from the ground up. And it's not just about getting heavier. In that same year, their length increases by a whopping 50%. This is the foundational construction phase, and it happens at a speed our bodies will literally never repeat again. Now, this is where we see the software starting to catch up with the hardware. Around 3 to 4 months, an infant can finally hold their head steady. And this isn't just a physical thing, it's a huge cognitive leap. For the very first time, they can choose what to look at. They can decide what's interesting in their world. Fast forward just a few more months to around the 8-month mark, and bam, the next big step, sitting up all by themselves. This is a total game changer. Suddenly, their hands are free to explore, to touch, to manipulate objects. They're interacting with their environment on a whole new level. And that freedom leads us to this, a seemingly tiny, that absolutely crucial skill, the pincer grasp. Using the thumb and forefinger to pick up small things. Shows up around 9 months. This one little development is so fundamental. It paves the way for everything from feeding themselves to, years later, holding a pencil. So, after that explosive first year, the blueprint's focus kind of shifts. The super rapid physical construction slows down a bit, and the programming of more complex skills takes center stage. The skills that really start to build a unique person. The big motor skills just take this massive leap. I mean, a child goes from those wobbly, unsupported first steps to, by age 3, having enough coordination to actually ride a tricycle. The jump in their mobility and freedom is just incredible to watch. But hey, we're not just physical beings, are we? And this perfectly illustrates the social blueprint kicking in. Simple games like peekaboo, which usually pop up around 10 months, they're not just for fun. They're actually teaching a child about object permanence and social turn-taking, the absolute bedrock of communication. And speaking of communication, just look at this timeline. It shows another explosion. Language is such a perfect example of the blueprint at work. You go from simple cooing to that first meaningful word around their birthday, and then suddenly 2-word sentences by age 2. It's this rapid, universal sequence that finally unlocks their ability to express their entire inner world. Okay, so with all this crazy change happening so quickly, you might be wondering, how do we know if a child's development is actually on track? Well, experts have tools for that, for monitoring this journey, and they're called growth charts. Now, this might look a little complicated, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. A growth chart just compares one child's progress to the average growth of thousands and thousands of other healthy children. It's a really clear way to visualize their journey and see if they're following a healthy curve. The key to understanding these charts is this one word, percentile. It sounds way more complicated than it is. Basically, if a child is in the 50th percentile for height, it just means they're taller than 50% of other kids their age. In other words, perfectly average. If they're in the 90th, they're taller than 90% of their peers. Simple as that. So what happens if a child is on a lower percentile? Does that mean something's wrong? Not necessarily. As this comparison shows, there are totally normal variations. A kid might just be a late bloomer who's going to catch up later on, or maybe their height is just perfectly normal for their family's genetics. See, our personal blueprint allows for different timetables. All right, let's fast forward to the final act of this amazing blueprint, the teenage years. After a pretty calm period of slower, steady growth in childhood, the body kicks off one last, dramatic transformation. We all know it as the puberty growth spurt. And just like in infancy, puberty follows a predictable path with its own set of milestones. In girls, the process usually begins with breast development, which is called the larky. That's followed by the development of pubic hair, known as pubarchy. All of this leads up to a peak in their height growth, and it all culminates in menarche, which is the start of menstruation. To track this whole journey with more precision, doctors use a system called the Tanner stages. For females, it's a 5-stage scale that maps out the entire progression, from being prepubertal all the way to being physically mature. It just provides a consistent framework to make sure everything is proceeding as expected. And you guessed it, there's a parallel 5-stage scale for males, tracking their physical changes just as closely. Both of these systems offer a standardized way to see exactly where an adolescent is on their journey, marking the final chapters as the biological blueprint completes its work. So, there you have it. From that wild explosion of growth in the first year to the final transformation of puberty, we all follow the same essential blueprints. Yeah, the timing can vary, and our final destination is unique to each of us, but the sequence, that's universal. It's a shared journey that connects every single one of us. So here's a final thought. What does this shared biological roadmap really tell us about the human experience itself?